Sup, you beautiful bastards. You're watching the Philip DeFranco Show, and we got a lot of news to talk about today. We're talking about everything that we know so far with the Kansas City Chiefs victory parade shooting, the reactions and accusations following YouTuber 2Mad's death, insights and allegations around Mr. Beast following his time profile, the threat of a Russia space-based nuclear weapon, and we dive into this tween skincare controversy. And then there's even more in today's jumbo-sized show, so buckle up, hit that like button to let me know you like these long shows and to let YouTube know you like these daily dives into the news, and let's just jump into it. Starting with, in the wake of the news breaking about YouTuber 2Mad's death, we are seeing a lot of different reactions and a lot of allegations. Right, and if you don't know, 2Mad was a 23-year-old content creator. It was actually pretty bit. You had TMZ reporting yesterday that he was found unresponsive at his home in LA on Tuesday after a welfare check. And apparently his death is being investigated as a potential overdose with foul play not currently suspected. So with that, you have outlets like E! News noting that nothing is final here and a cause of death has been deferred thus far. And so what we saw, with this news breaking is you had a lot of people saying rest in peace, talking about how young he was, or talking about how this is another story about being careful about drugs, how it can ruin your life. But then this also, as others in the space levied some incredibly serious and heavy allegations. With, for example, the most viral tweet around this coming from creator Jamesky, who said, "I can finally say it. 2Mad was a rapist and a pedophile. Over the past few years, he tried to murder me multiple times for helping the police and detectives in multiple states to investigate a lot of horrible things he's done." Claiming 2Mad wanted to take out lives by driving while high, Jamesky also saying that despite all that, he tried to help law enforcement make sure that he was safe. But still continuing with the allegations, saying 2Mad preyed on the vulnerable even after the police got involved, including a 13-year-old in mental hospital, and saying the tragedy doesn't excuse any of his actions. Also adding that he will address more at a later time. With that, you had people like longtime creator Rubber Ross responding, saying I witnessed firsthand 2Mad's threats on James's life during TwitchCon. Others also having their own stories with similar claims. Streamer Zestella, for example, saying 2Mad harassed me for months on my socials and spammed me with dozens of messages saying how obsessed he was, claiming that he said he wanted to rape her sometimes, even saying with a minor. And all this coming as he had been accused of sexual assault in the past. You also had people noting they've been posting a lot of weird things in the days leading up to his death, including a tweet where he referred to himself as a rapist, as well as tons of photos of guns and then other strange things. But also, as we saw new claims coming up after his death, there's been some mixed responses to that. Some saying things like, it seems incredibly irresponsible to tweet out such serious allegations within an hour after someone's death without a shred of proof provided. I hope you have good evidence for these claims. As well as creator Justamink saying 2Mad stalked her, but responding to Jamesky's post saying, as someone who experienced it firsthand and spoke about it, I think this tweet is fucking insane. Not even 10 minutes after they announced his passing. He doesn't deserve respect, but his family is mourning. So this notably, as many people supported people coming out with these claims. So as we saw those debates playing out, we also had people like Moist Critical chiming in. Moist actually had a connection to 2Mad a while ago because he worked with his agency selling him ads. I'm kind of shining a light on what people were saying in the space, what people had experienced, talking about the various things he heard about 2Mad over the last few years, saying especially regarding drug use.
He went down a really bad path, and he never recovered from it. So he would say some fucked up things, and he just, I guess, kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'd heard like things from other YouTubers about him, like in real life, and it was all really pretty horrifying stuff. But I didn't know the extent of it until like a ton of creators came out today to tell their experience with him. It's f***ing awful. Whatever he found destroyed his mental state and created a monster.
And as allegations have mounted, people have used that as kind of a green light to mock his death, to make tons of memes and jokes about it. And if you search up his name on X, it's some of the first stuff that you'll see, which has sparked a whole different layer of conversation and debate about whether that's okay, warranted, appropriate, or just outright horrific. As of recording, a lot of this is still playing out. And so in the meantime, especially if you are people that were familiar with 2Mad, the space, the general scene, I'd love to know your thoughts on this situation and also your response to the reactions that we've seen thus far. And then Time Magazine just put out this very in in-depth profile of Mr. Beast, and it paints a very big and like adventurous, but also messy and concerning picture. Right, they dive into the insanity of his schedule, the success, all the numbers, and with that, sharing an image of a Jimmy Donaldson that's just going from one thing to the next. Right, like at one point, they talk about producer Kyle Bennett, and he's explaining the 1,000 Spider Challenge, but then all of a sudden, he stops and looks around, and he's lost his audience, Jimmy Donaldson, saying he has just quietly left the room, with Bennett saying, classic. With time going on to say Donaldson is supposed to be showing a reporter and a film crew of one around the set for the next in his series of wildly popular videos, going on to describe all the things that are set up, but saying Donaldson's not happy. He's been away on another shoot for 11 days, and he's not thrilled with the progress of this one, with Jimmy saying, I'm not really good at these things. With at times, the piece touching on not only the crazy views, but the schedule that they're putting these videos out on, and also the scale of those videos. And then with that, the timepiece kind of pivots, with him saying Time spoke to a dozen former Mr. Beast employees, and while all admired Donaldson and his vision, they found that the company's attention to detail slipped when it came to adhering to safety norms or maintaining a healthy work culture, and adding many had signed NDAs and would not go on the record for fear of angering a powerful company. But with it, he had one creative producer who worked with Mr. Beast in 2023 saying they view safety as like being overly cautious or a weakness, saying that he helped produce the Train versus Giant Pit video and was concerned about safety there, and when he suggested using OSHA protocols, he claimed, I was told we don't need to worry about that. Meanwhile, you had others claiming they were asked to work with explosives and heavy machinery with little training on little notice, also saying one person would even update a board days without an accident every day. Several producers also saying there was pushback around hiring stunt experts, with one person even claiming to have been let go from their job for pushing for safety, though notably a spokesperson for the company said no one's ever been let go for that reason. And that spokesperson also adding safety is incredibly important and taken very seriously, noting that there are medics on every set and saying that the company is OSHA compliant. So that was a big aspect of the piece, but there were also people saying that while they had no issues with Jimmy, the company culture itself is toxic. One producer saying that there was a lot of bullying, saying people are experiencing enormous amounts of stress. There's a lot of fear that you can be fired at any moment. Because clear feedback isn't given, it's hard to know whether that's going to happen. He also talks about Mr. Beast's mom actually working for the company herself as the chief compliance officer, though in this piece, many said that she's really akin to HR, though notably, a spokesperson said she is not. He also had one filmmaker who worked with Mr. Beast saying he actually approached her to say, quote, I'm going to tell you right now that if the company keeps treating people the way it's been treating people, Jimmy is going to have no one left to work for him. Though notably with all this, you had a spokesperson for the company telling Time, the company has high standards for performance and not everyone is best suited for this work. Though also with this, it is worth noting that like this wasn't some mega hit piece. They talked about a lot of stuff in this and there are things that people are like pulling from it. But you also have things like with people like Chris Tyson, and Chris, who transitioned last year, told Time, this building we're in was one of the first places that I was able to feel comfortable enough to present as my authentic self. There are also interesting aspects about Mr. Beast's life and business, noting that his fame has taken a toll on how he lives his life. He barely goes out in public work much to avoid mobs and crowds. He also doesn't see himself as rich, but that's also because with everything that he makes, he's reinvested. In his production company, that actually didn't churn a profit in 2023. Apparently, they don't expect that to change this year. And in fact, saying that 70% of revenue comes from Feastables. But ultimately, that is where we are on this. And the profile is very big, so if you're interested in a true deep dive on this, I'll include a link to the article down below. But I also want to leave you with the question of, what are your thoughts on this? I know there are a lot of things that are touched on, and there we also have, accusations from former employees, denials from the company. Yeah, let me know. And then, installing roofs on businesses and homes is incredibly dangerous. One slip, you could be dead. But despite there being federal regulations prohibiting anyone underage from working this job, countless migrant children are building roofs at the risk of their own lives. In fact, the New York Times didn't just find 100 kids who are working on America's roofs right now. That was the number they spoke to, some of which who started when they were elementary school age. We're talking about kids moving heavy bundles of shingles up ladders without safety gear, balancing on steep inclines for hours at a time, and working through heat waves on black tar rooftops that scorch and blister hands. And on social media, they're called rooferitos, often sharing videos from the roofs of houses and that steep drop downward. And in the case of one Anthony Padilla, his fall didn't kill him, but it did leave him with severe brain trauma. Memory and body left in shambles. Anthony, he spent most of his childhood in Honduras with his family, living in a one-room house with his 4 siblings. He's been working since a very, very young age, and once he was 15, he left Honduras and he came to the States in 2021. Anthony found work in South Carolina as a roofer. He was making enough money to cover room and board at his uncle's trailer nearby and sending as much as $300 back home to his family every month. But last spring, when he was working on this massive beach house, he slipped while collecting shingles, falling 30 feet onto the cement patio below. He fractured his skull, punctured a lung, and he was bleeding internally, all while breathing through a tube in his neck. His family called in from Honduras to say their goodbyes, and the surgeon wrote that his outcome did not look good. But 3 months after that fall, Anthony woke up and he was discharged. But no rehabilitation center would take him without insurance. So he was just sent back to his uncle's trailer, unable to speak or even stand, and he stayed inside for months. And after 5 months, he still couldn't lift his arm, he was unsteady on his feet, and he couldn't understand basic questions. Like, he couldn't remember what state he was in or even his father's name. Well, eventually, he could speak again. Once that happened, he began asking when he could go back home to Honduras. With that, you had his parents who had no idea how they were going to support him, for numerous reasons, but also they live hours from the type of medical care that he needs. So you've got them also asking him to stay put until there's some foreseeable path forward for his care. And so now, at 17, Anthony spends his days scrolling through TikTok, seeing countless videos like the ones he used to take. Rooferitos on the tops of buildings with steep drops just steps behind them. And a big thing is that there are so many others like Anthony, with labor organizers and social workers saying they're seeing more and more migrant children getting seriously injured on roofing crews in recent years. And you have the New York Times finding several. A 16-year-old in Arkansas fell off a roof and shattered his back. A 15-year-old in Florida got burns all over his body when he slipped from a roof onto a vat of hot tar. One kid in Illinois stepped through a skylight and fractured his spine. When these kids get hurt, contractors often refuse to pay for their medical bills. Or like in Anthony's case, he would likely qualify for workers' compensation, but the company hired to do the roof subcontracted the job out to a smaller company who subcontracted it again, which just left 3 companies arguing for over a year about who's actually responsible for Anthony's workers' comp. And in fact, as I'm recording this, they are still in the process of settling the case. But even with that, we're talking about the kids who survive. According to the Department of Labor, 100 roofers die on the job every single year, mostly from falls. And a big thing here is we don't actually have the data for how many child roofers sustain injury or die. That's because the child roofers aren't supposed to exist. But here's the thing we do know. Children working on construction sites are 6 times more likely to be killed compared to those working in other positions, with roofing being the second most dangerous job for kids behind agriculture. Like in one case, you had a 15-year-old who was installing metal roofing on a plant in Alabama when the insulation that he was standing on gave way and he fell to the concrete down below. And after his death, OSHA found that the crew working on that roof had 9 workers and only 6 safety harnesses. Now, with everything that we've talked about, of course, it brings us to a question. If U.S. federal law bans anyone from under the age of 18 from roofing, how are these kids not only getting, but keeping these jobs? Well, according to reports, subcontractors are struggling to find adults to fill these positions. And this is you have roofing industry experts saying that the South has seen residential building booms while the industry battles a labor shortage. So then these subcontractors, they turn to kids, who then oftentimes say that they're 18 and those in charge just don't ask for any proof. It doesn't hurt that they're cheaper to employ. Now, in some cases, crew bosses keep kids on the ground out of a concern for their safety, or having them pick up loose shingles or lifting bags up the ladders. But in many places, being on the roof pays nearly double what working on the ground does, which ends up being a strong incentive for these kids that are trying to support themselves and their families. Interestingly, with this, you had one crew boss saying that she hires underage workers because she doesn't like turning away kids in need, notably going on to say that she isn't worried about inspectors, saying they only visit certain neighborhoods and sometimes they let you know when they're going to show up. And the Department of Labor, who's in charge of enforcing child labor laws, they've done very little to address labor problems within the roofing industry. They brought an average of 7 cases per year in the last decade. And that, while you had at the time saying they spoke with 20 child migrant workers as young as 13 years old on day labor sites, and that was just from one small city. Also, regarding the investigators, one career investigator told the Times that while she responds to all tips regarding child labor, she just isn't going to chase it down, saying, "I'm not going to make it my duty to go out and look for it." You know, even when OSHA does respond to accidents where kids are killed or they're seriously injured, inspectors sometimes fail to follow their own policy and alert child labor investigators. Sometimes they let the cases drop entirely. Now, worth noting, after the Times started looking into this, the Labor Department saying they're revisiting some of these cases, so hopefully we see something from that. But in an ideal world, especially as more and more of these fucking newspapers are shutting down, the Times or any outlet would need to pick up this story for people to do their job. Because really all we're talking about at this point is how many cases are being swept under the rug. It's not an if. And unless something's done, these contractors are gonna just go on hiring kids. But as we wait to see if any sort of meaningful change can happen here, I gotta pass the question off to you. Not only generally, what are your thoughts on the situation, but specifically, whether you're a contractor, a subcontractor, or you've just worked on job sites. Because when I was young, I worked on some job sites, and there's a lot of fucking sketchy, under-the-table shit going on. But I'd love to know your thoughts, your experiences, and also what do you think is gonna happen here? And then, yo, we've got basketball, hockey, concerts, the theater, and everything. I mean, there's an event for every mood and taste. And in case you haven't heard, SeatGeek and I are sending several of you and your loved ones to your favorite live events, so listen up. Because with over 70,000 events and 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. And I told them that I wanted to do something special for you beautiful bastards. And SeatGeek came through because until March 15th, we'll be giving away $500 in SeatGeek credit weekly. Which, by the way, congratulations to our first winner, Sydney Burford. And you heard right, every week, someone from this audience will win $500. Make sure you're subscribed today. And then we need to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs parade shooting yesterday and everything we've learned since. Because it happened at around 2 in the afternoon near Union Station in Kansas City, Missouri, where the Chiefs players had just finished addressing their fans and around 1 million people at a rally celebrating their Super Bowl victory. Just minutes later, you had gunfire ringing through what was a festive atmosphere, turning the parade into a stampede, with thousands of people running for their lives as multiple shooters sprayed bullets through the air. And I'll just let the survivors who were there describe what it was like.
It all started off as a celebration, you know, it was fun. Everybody was in good spirits. Everybody was happy to be, you know, celebrating that 2-peat by the Chiefs.
When all of a sudden people started crushing forward, everybody started running, there was screaming. There was a woman crying, saying something about somebody had been shot.
We thought they were firecrackers at first.
There was just kind of blood everywhere.
You could definitely hear the pop, pop, pop.
Thank God there was somebody that helped me get to safety with my vision. I am legally blind, but a young man helped me.
SWAT teams jumping over the fence, and I'm like,
This is our America these days.
By the end of it all, we have reports that at least 1 person was killed and 22 injured, with around half of those wounded reportedly being children as young as 8 and no older than 16. You also had the city's fire chief saying that of the wounded, 7 had life-threatening injuries and 8 more had immediately life-threatening injuries. And this is according to the mayor. All Chiefs players, coaches, and staff have been accounted for. Now, as far as the person who died, she's been identified as 43-year-old Lisa Lopez Galvan. She was a mother of 2, a radio DJ, and the host of Taste of Tacano, with the station putting out a statement saying this senseless act has taken a beautiful person from her family and this KC community. And a legislator who knew her saying she was a member of a very large family of civic leaders actively involved in the city's Latino community, and adding she was the light at every party. She was oftentimes the voluntary DJ when everyone needed one for a community event. Also, with this horrific situation, you have another person who's been widely praised as a hero, and that being 46-year-old Paul Contreras. Right, he was just a father who was walking back to his car with his 3 daughters when the shooting started. And with that, him saying that he saw one of the alleged shooters running and heard someone screaming to stop him, and so he just leapt into action, telling CNN.
You don't think about it, it's just a reaction. He got close to me, I got the right angle on him. When I hit him from behind, I either...
46-year-old Paul Contreras. Right, he was just a father who was walking back to his car with his 3 daughters when the shooting started. And with that, him saying that he saw one of...
Wait, hold up. We getting paid for this?
The alleged shooters running and heard someone screaming to stop him, and so he just leapt into action, telling CNN.
You don't think about it, it's just a reaction. He got close to me, I got the right angle on him. When I hit him from behind, just a reaction.
Heard someone screaming to stop him, and so he just leapt into action, telling CNN.
You don't think about it, it's just a reaction. He got close to me, I got the right angle on him. When I hit him from behind, I either jarred the gun out of his hand or out of his sleeve.
With then a second man jumping in to help, and Paul holding down the shooter's upper body and the other guy restraining his legs.
He's just fighting to get up, but we're fighting to keep him down.
and then a third bystander rushing over to pin the shooter, followed by then a swarm of police who finally detained the man. And actually, now as of today, police have reportedly taken 3 people into custody, and 2 of them identified as juveniles. But other than that, with what the police are officially putting out there, we have very little information on who these alleged shooters are. Though we do know that Paul Contreras' daughter told News Nation the one her father tackled was an African-American male. Now with all this, so far, the police chief has said that there is no indication of nexus to terrorism or homegrown violent extremism. And they're adding that the shooting appears to have been a, quote, dispute between several people that ended in gunfire. That also appearing to be backed up by one survivor who was shot in the ankle, telling CBS that he overheard an altercation prior to the shooting in which a girl told someone else, "Don't do it, not here, this is stupid." And then, according to him, his wife and daughter saw someone draw a gun. So apparently these 3 suspects were not targeting the parade itself. Now that said, as far as any other suspects, reportedly police initially questioned 10 people. Though the status of the other 7 who aren't in custody is unclear. And as of recording, I understand this is still a developing situation. No charges have been announced yet. Now all that said, while we're waiting to get more information, online you may have seen that there's another big question floating around, with people now in the wake of this saying, why didn't the more than 800 cops policing the parade stop this sooner? Or saying, why did 3 consecutive civilians have to risk their lives tackling a gunman before law enforcement caught up? You know, as we wait to hear more, of course, people have been sharing their responses. And that includes both everyday people and even the President of the United States, with President Biden posting, how many more families need to be torn apart? It's time for Congress to finally act to ban assault weapons, limit high-capacity magazines, strengthen background checks, and keep guns out of the hands of those who have no business owning them. But with all that said, as we wait to see how this plays out, and of course, I'd love to know your thoughts here, I do want to end today by focusing on those brave BAMFs who, without a weapon, risked their lives and acted, because people really never know how they're going to respond to a situation like that until they're in it. When the shit hit the fan that none of these people should have had to be a part of, they acted and possibly saved numerous lives. And then America is facing a serious national security threat. That is what Representative Mike Turner, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, said in a cryptic and alarming statement yesterday. With that, saying that the committee had made intel on that undefined threat available to members of Congress and called on Biden to declassify it for the public. And in a letter to other members, Turner and the Intelligence Committee's top Democrat, Representative Jim Himes, elaborated a bit, saying that their panel had identified an urgent matter with regard to a destabilizing foreign military capability that should be known by all congressional policymakers. And unsurprisingly, that got people all riled up, freaked out, got people looking up to see if the sky's falling, with many wondering, what could this threat possibly be? It must be so incredibly important to make a public statement like this. And then later in the day, you had sources telling outlets the answer: Russian space nukes. Specifically, you had sources saying that the U.S. had gathered information that Russia is developing a space-based nuclear anti-satellite weapon. Right? And anti-satellites are pretty much exactly what they sound like: weapons aimed at taking down other countries' satellites. And in this case, specifically the U.S.'s satellites. With the New York Times reporting, such a satellite killing weapon, if deployed, could destroy civilian communication, surveillance from space, and military command and control operations by the United States and its allies. And adding, according to a former official, the U.S. doesn't currently have the capability to counter a nuclear anti-satellite weapon and defend our satellites from it. Which, yes, sounds really fucking bad. But don't panic, or at least not yet, because multiple outlets reported that the sources who informed them of the weapon said it's not operational yet, and Russia doesn't seem close to deploying it. So it's not currently considered an urgent threat. And that was also echoed by top lawmakers, though notably, they did not confirm that Turner was talking about a Russian space nuke, without even including Turner's Intelligence Committee counterpart, Representative Himes, who explicitly said this is not a panic now issue, and adding it is a serious national security issue in the medium to long term that the Congress and the administration need to focus on, but no need to buy gold. And you had a whole slew of other lawmakers making similar points, without even including House Speaker Mike Johnson, who told people to calm the fuck down, telling reporters, "I want to assure the American people there is no need for public alarm. We are going to work together to address this matter as we do all sensitive matters that are classified." But that said, understandably, you had people going, okay, but if this is not an immediate panic situation, why did a top Republican, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, say, because you have intelligence officials telling the Times this isn't the kind of intel that requires a warning to the public about immediate threat. And beyond that, there are serious concerns that disclosing this kind of information could create serious problems for the government to actually deal with this situation, which is why it's not surprising that the Times reported that Turner's statement infuriated White House officials who feared the loss of important sources of information on Russia. And that same sentiment was also expressed by an aide who told the Washington Post that Turner's disclosure could actively make the response harder if it revealed any kind of information about how the U.S. obtained this intelligence. And notably, that same aide was also pissed off about the timing because lawmakers apparently in both the House and Senate have actually had this information for weeks. But for some reason, Turner chose to release this statement a day before the briefing between White House officials and a group of top House lawmakers called the Gang of Eight, with the leaders of the Senate Intelligence Committee confirming they've also been tracking the issue Turner was referencing and also cautioning about, quote, disclosing sources and methods that may be key to preserving a range of options for U.S. action. And during a press briefing, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also took aim at Turner's timing, noting the Gang of Eight meeting and adding, that's been on the books. So I am a bit surprised that Congressman Turner came out publicly today and advance of a meeting on the books for me to go sit with him alongside our intelligence and defense professionals tomorrow. But with all this, as far as why, you had one official telling the Times that maybe he blew this out of proportion as an effort to push the House to pass the $95 billion that would go to give aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Because the Senate has passed that bill, but the measure is stalled in the House under Speaker Johnson, with many Republicans opposing additional funding. But supporters, including Turner, argue that one of the number one reasons the U.S. should pass this bill is to help Ukraine fight threats from Russia that go beyond the region. Which, hey, I very much agree that there is a reason the United States should help Ukraine fight Russia. If not just to fight a mad dictator and warmonger in Putin. And if he is successful, there's no reason for him to stop. And that puts our allies and us at bigger risk, not only of money, but having to risk more and more of American lives right down the road. But regarding if Turner's way of getting attention for this was the way to go about it seems to very much not be the case. But we gotta wait to see how this plays out. And in the meantime, I'd love to know your thoughts here. And then we'll get back to more news you need to know in just a second. But y'all, I think I found the best razor I've ever used. And it's from a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer, like for the International Space Station and the Mars rover. And I've actually been using them long before they were a sponsor of the show. So thank you, Henson Shaving, for giving me the best shave I've ever had. Because y'all, Henson shaving razors are ridiculously well built and have given me the closest shave I've ever had in my life, and with no nicks or cuts. You know, razor blades, they're like diving boards. The longer the board, the more wobble, meaning more nicks and cuts. But their blades extend only 1/1000th of an inch, which means a secure and stable blade. And what's really cool is the clog-free design. The razors have built-in channels to remove hair and shaving cream, so it never gets clogged. So not only am I getting the closest shave, but I'm getting it by using cool tech. And just as important, it's way cheaper than disposable blades. Once you have a Henson razor, it costs $3 to $5 a year to replace the blades, which is also just one less thing I have to think about in my life, which I consider a bonus in itself. So just head on over to hensonshaving.com/DeFranco to pick the razor for you. Use code DeFranco to get 2 years worth of blades free with your razors. Make sure you add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco. That was long enough to add a little bouncing ball. And then next up, we gotta talk about how y'all, the kids are not all right. Because while personal hygiene and skincare, very important, by the time many of these kids are 10 years old, they're convinced they need to start anti-aging skincare routines, which sounds potentially harmless until you take a closer look. Because in no way is it a secret that skincare is a huge market online, especially on TikTok. I mean, just on TikTok, that hashtag alone has over 300 billion views. And the related subsearch is also incredibly popular. And when you dive into that, you'll find people showing their moisturizing routines, doing face masks, trying new cleansers. But you'll also see videos like this.
Here's some things that I do to slow down the aging process as a 14-year-old. I started doing most of these things at 12.
With that girl going on to do a multi-step routine that she apparently does twice a day. And last year, she told The Cut that she actually isn't obsessed too much with aging, and that this is actually a precaution against concerns she's seen from creators in skincare tutorials, which she started watching at a young age. And the one big thing that she took from all those influencers and the celebrities was that when it comes to anti-aging, they always say the younger you start, the better. And she is not alone here, right? It's why girls even younger than her are spending gobs of time and money on skincare. You got little kids asking Santa to bring anti-aging moisturizers in his sleigh. You've got Sephora's packed with kids who buy creams they can't even spell. With a New York-based dermatologist telling CNN, we've now actually started to see 9 to 13-year-olds in the office for cosmetic consultations on a somewhat regular basis. If you're looking at this like I was initially when this story was pitched to me, and you're like, well, what's the deal? Like, I wanted Proactive when I saw those commercials when I was young. What's the big deal? I wish I started moisturizing when I was younger. Well, it turns out that's not quite what a lot of today's tweens are doing. Right? You've got kids as young as 10 raiding Sephora in search of high-end brands like Drunk Elephant, which if you're unfamiliar with is like giving a toddler a Rolex. Or they sell creams for $70, serums that can be over $100 as well. Some anti-aging products that kids shouldn't be using. Because anti-aging products, they're meant for people who are aging. It's in the name, not prepubescent. Because while adults might benefit from things like retinol or vitamin serums, a teenager's skin, that's a different climate. They have more hormones and more collagen, so that means that they have different needs. Which is why you have tons of dermatologists now trying to get the word out, warning that these 10-step wrinkle prevention routines, they're not only unnecessary for them, but they can actually include ingredients that are bad for tweens and teens. With, for example, dermatologist Dr. Sharon Wong telling Vice, at that age, they should definitely be nowhere near retinols. No exfoliating acids, no vitamin C, none of that is required for children of that age. In young children with acne, it's very easy to overuse active ingredients, and then you end up over drying the skin, causing breakouts, eczema, and sensitivity. And adding even adults will have issues if they just pile on all the actives at the same time, right? Noting that too much can crack your skin and open doors for infection, or even to develop allergies to products you were not always sensitive to. And a big thing, this is especially true of thin, immature skin. And yes, there are exceptions to every rule, but if you are dealing with hyper-specific skin problems, you should probably contact a dermatologist, not TikTok. Now that said, there are a few things I gotta say. I know cost can be a limiting factor, or one of the reasons people may go to social media for advice rather than a dermatologist. money, expenses, and yes, you can seek out information, but you gotta be careful. There is so much money being made and spent in this space, like, it's hard to know who to trust. You have to be careful. You gotta do your due diligence. Also, a big thing is I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a skincare routine if you're young. It is totally healthy for tweens and even preteens to start a skincare routine with puberty on the horizon. But a small and really basic one is where that should likely start and stop, with dermatologists largely agreeing that a gentle cleanser, moisturizer, and then some SPF gets the job done for most young people. And that also means young kids do not need to be shelling out hundreds of dollars on this bullshit. Though mom, dad, it's your money, do what you want. Though why people are overspending on this is connected to another concern, or the fact that kids as young as 9 years old are afraid of aging and are concerned with maintaining their appearance. And of course, a lot of that goes back to social media and the amount of time they spend on it. Where you've got celeb kids out there like Northwest having skincare videos going absolutely viral. Meanwhile, tweens see tons of people their age doing makeup and skincare hauls or get ready with me videos, reviews of skin trends, and all of these kids, they're convinced they should be participating. And on that note, columnist Holly Thomas writing, the modern rebranding of beauty products to skincare, reminiscent of diets to lifestyle, implies that simply leaving your skin alone is tantamount to negligence. And then on top of all that, like I briefly mentioned, a lot of these influencers have something to gain when promoting these products. Especially because in the world of skincare and makeup, the margins can be fucking huge. Which means not only so much money that can go to the companies that make these products, but so much money to the people that will promote them to you. And a lot of the promotion is based on two things: aspiration and fear. With Renee Engel, a psychology professor at Northwestern University, telling The Cut, beauty products sell best when they create a feeling of fear and vulnerability. The sooner they can get young girls worried about another thing that might go wrong with their appearance, the more they can sell. And sell they do, with a survey from Piper Sandler finding the teen spending on skincare went up 20% just between 2022 and 2023. I mean, we have elementary kids out here worried about aging, which is why we're now seeing a lot of dermatologists trying to take to TikTok in hopes of balancing what people are consuming on the app. Right, doing things like telling parents that it's okay to bring their kids back down to earth, starting and talking about good habits that make sense for their age. But cynically, I will say those dermatologists and parents in general are going to have an uphill battle. Because again, this industry has just so much money. When there
Yeah, I taught it to her. Do you even know who her fiance is? Yes. Oh, I found a post on Twitter. I don't see anything else on Twitter.
Mercy has no flavor.
Above the human snores.
Mercy has no flavor.
Yes, I have. That little blue thing's the best thing about that movie. The thing that's in the jail cell above the lava. Had to watch it in theaters when it came out. Yeah, it's the default unit for when you start this game. Oh yeah. I don't remember what it's from. Is it like... I don't know what game it's from. Is it one of Luna's things, like her star? Oh, it's from Super Mario Galaxy. I never played those. Yeah, I just pulled it up as well. What stream picture? I didn't know there was a picture. Look, I found her, no idea who it is. No, I don't know. If I see her, I'll ask.
I like it here. I just might stay. I've got a good feeling about this.
Oh, that's a stream picture? I thought that was my, oh, you said Steam. I thought you were saying stream. That's a Master Tonberry from Final Fantasy.
How should I proceed?
My fans are the reason I sing.
I've got a good feeling about this.
Slow down. Uh-oh. Fast.
The fun begins. I like it here. I just might stay.
Play it loud.
I have never flown those before. I had a friend, that one person that plays with me sometimes. One time we went to Vegas and she flew them, and they, I think it was Frontier, and they like changed her flight, or they changed her flight by like a whole day, like without notice. So she had to cancel that flight and just lost the money on it, and then just booked a different airline. Where do you keep flying to?
Let's dance above the human snores.
How about a serenade? No problem here.
I mean, it was alright. Ooh, I need this guy. Nobody take him. Oh no. Nobody took him. I'm about to be so strong. Oh man, I got hurt.
I much prefer this to desk duty.
The show never ends.
My turn.
So I liked it because it was from Final Fantasy, and it was like a really troll enemy. It would just take like one step every couple of seconds, and then if you got close enough, it would just poke you and you die. It was like a one-hit kill.
A little bit of thunderous acclaim.
Prepare for your finale. Your final scene begins. Prepare for your finale.
Fear not, I'm coming.
I felt the rush, and now I wear the crown.
Vincent and Red X. Hero, I liked. I mean, I did like Vincent Valentine the most, I think. He wasn't very good though, and Red X wasn't very good either.
I've got a good feeling about this. I've got a good feeling about this.
Your final scene begins. Prepare for your finale.
I don't think Mog was a character you could play.
Your final scene begins.
Kate Sith was like a cat thing on top of a doll. Oh, that's the name of it? Okay, kids are about on their way home. Gotta go.